Everything outside my windshield looked the same. Dark highway, faded lane lines, the occasional truck passing like a blur of light and noise. My eyes burned, my neck was stiff, and I kept turning the radio louder just to stay awake. By the time I saw the motel sign, I wasn't even thinking clearly anymore. It stood just off a lonely highway exit, half hidden behind a row of tall pine trees. Sunset. Pines Motel vacancy. A few letters were burned out, and the sign buzzed weakly in the dark. The place looked old. Not charming old, abandoned old. But I was too tired to care. The parking lot was wet from recent rain, and the yellow lights above the rooms made the pavement shine in dull patches. There were only a few vehicles parked outside. An old pickup, or a dark sedan, and a rusted van near the far end. I grabbed my wallet and went into the office. Inside smelled like stale coffee and old carpet. A tiny TV in the corner played the news with no sound. Behind the counter sat an old man in a brown sweater, staring at something I couldn't see. He looked up slowly when I walked in. "You need a room?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just for one night." He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me for a second too long, then reached behind him and took down a key. Not a key card, a real key. He placed it on the counter. "Room 17. I handed him my card. "Cash only," he said. That annoyed me, but I was too tired to argue. I paid cash, signed the paper, and reached for the key, but he kept his fingers on it. Then he said very calmly, "If you hear knocking tonight, I don't open the door." I gave a small laugh because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I looked at him. "Why?" He finally let go of the key. "Some people stop here when they shouldn't." That was all he said. No smile, no explanation, just that. I took the key and left. Room 17 was at the far end of the motel near the trees. The farther I drove along the row of rooms, the darker it got. The office light faded behind me. By the time I reached my room, it felt like I was parked at the edge of the world. Room 16 was next to mine. Its curtains were closed, but I could see a faint line of light underneath the door. At least someone else was awake. That made me feel a little better. I got out, grabbed my duffel bag, and unlocked the door to room 17. The room was small and outdated. One bed, one lamp, a dresser with an old TV. On beige walls, stained near the ceiling. The air smelled slightly damp, like the room had been closed up too long. Still, it had a bed and a lock. That was enough for me.
I know you're in there.
I shut the door, locked it, and set my bag down.
Please, just listen.
Then I noticed the chain lock above the handle.
Don't be afraid.
It was broken.
Open.
The metal plate hung loose, with one screw half ripped out of the wood. I stared at it for a second, remembering what the old clerk had said. "If you hear knocking tonight, don't open the door." I told myself it was nothing. Just an old cheap motel with bad maintenance. I washed my face, plugged in my phone, and dropped onto the bed fully dressed. I didn't even bother taking off my shoes at first. The TV was on low, just for background noise. I must have drifted off because the next thing I remember was waking up to a soft knock. 3 taps. I opened my eyes slowly. The room was dark except for the weak blue glow of the TV. Then it came again. 3 more taps. I sat up and looked at the clock. 1:13 a.m. I stayed still, listening. A woman's voice came from outside, soft, nervous. "Please, can you help me?" I didn't move. "My car won't start," she said. I stared at the door. Part of me wanted to help. That was the problem. Her voice sounded real, tired, scared. But then one thought hit me immediately. Why my room? Why not the office? Why not the room next door? Why come all the way to the last room at the end of the motel? I got off the bed quietly and walked to the window. I pulled the curtain aside just a little. The walkway outside looked empty. No woman, no shadow. No one standing near my door. Then the voice came again, this time closer. I know you're awake." My hand slipped off the curtain. A cold pressure settled in my chest. I looked back toward the door. And very slowly, the doorknob began to move. I stood frozen beside the bed, staring at the door. The knob stopped. For a few seconds, nothing happened.
My car broke down. Can you
Then the
call
woman
someone?
outside spoke again.
I can pay. Just
Please.
help.
I just need to use your phone.
Come on, man.
Her voice sounded different now. Less scared, calmer. That made my stomach tighten. I looked at my
Open
phone
the
on the
door. I
nightstand.
need help.
No signal.
Please, it's an emergency.
Outside,
Stop.
something shifted.
Open up. No, please,
Footsteps.
help me.
Not just one person.
Help that bag.
Another set of steps moved along the walkway, stopping near the wall between my room and room 16. My heart started beating faster.
Help. Is anyone in
The
there?
woman tapped the door
I
lightly.
need help. Open the
Open
door.
it, she said quietly.
Please help my name.
I stayed completely still.
Somebody. Pray for
Then the
some-
doorknob turned again, harder this time. It rattled once, then stopped. Silence filled the room. From the other side of the wall, inside room 16, I suddenly heard a loud thud, like something heavy hitting the floor. I turned toward the wall. Another sound followed, a scraping noise, furniture moving, or someone dragging something. Then a voice yelled from inside room 16. Just one sharp cry, and then it stopped. Completely. Outside my door, the woman laughed softly. Not loud, just one short breath of laughter.
There.
I backed away from the door slowly.
He's turning.
My brain was already making the decision.
Don't let him
I was
go.
not staying here. I grabbed my duffel bag and car keys. If I could get to my car, I could leave in 10 seconds. But the woman outside spoke again. You shouldn't stay in this room. That sentence hit differently. Not threatening. Almost like a warning. Then I heard whispering outside. There were two male voices. Low. Talking to each other. There were at least 3 people out there. The woman knocked again, this time harder. Open the door. I didn't answer. Instead, I moved toward the window and forced the frame upward. At first, it wouldn't move. Then the paint cracked and it lifted just enough. The sound of the window made everything outside go quiet. They heard it. I pushed the window higher and climbed out. Cold air hit my face as I dropped onto the wet ground behind the motel. The back of the building was almost completely dark. Only a weak light near the corner gave any visibility. I crouched below the window, listening. Inside my room, the TV still glowed faintly. Then the door burst open. Wood cracked. Someone had forced it. Heavy footsteps rushed inside. Where is he? A man's voice said. Another voice answered, angry. He was just here. I didn't wait. I ran along the back wall of the motel toward the front parking lot. When I reached the corner of the building, I risked a glance back. 2 men had come around the end of the motel, running behind them. The woman walked slowly. She wasn't running. She didn't look worried. She looked patient, like she knew I didn't have many places left to go. I sprinted across the parking lot toward the office. The door was locked. I grabbed the handle and shook it hard. Hey, I shouted. Open the door. Inside, the small TV still flickered blue in the empty office. Then the office light turned on. The old clerk stood inside. He stared at me through the glass. Relief hit me instantly. Open it, I said. He didn't move. Behind me, footsteps were getting closer. So I banged on the glass again. Open the door. The clerk looked past me, toward the 3 people walking across the parking lot. Then he looked back at me. Slowly, he shook his head. No, I stared at him. What? He stepped closer to the glass. If I let you in, he said quietly, they'll come in too. Behind me, the woman's voice drifted across the parking lot. You should have stayed in your room. I turned. All 3 of them were
Excuse me,
standing
can I
under the
use your
yellow motel
phone?
lights now, watching me, waiting. I turned back to the clerk. Call the police. His expression didn't change. They don't come here anymore. The footsteps started again. Closer now. I slammed my hand on the glass. Then help me. The clerk looked toward the far end of the motel, toward the room beside mine. Then he said something that made no sense at all. There's one room they won't enter. He pointed across the parking lot. Straight at room 16. Part
Hello?
3.
Are you in there?
Final.
It's me.
For
Please,
a second,
open
I
the
thought
door.
the old man had lost his mind. Room 16 was the room right next to mine, the one where I had heard the crash, the one where someone had screamed. But when the clerk pointed toward it, something strange happened. The 3 people in the parking lot stopped walking. Completely. The woman turned her head slowly toward room 16. Even from across the lot, I could see the change in her face. Not anger, not confusion, something closer to hesitation. The old clerk opened the office door just enough to slide something across the wet concrete. A key. "Go," he said. That was all. I didn't waste another second. I grabbed the key and ran across the parking lot toward room 16. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it while trying to unlock the door. The lock turned. I shoved the door open and jumped inside, slamming it behind me. Then I locked it. The room was completely dark. No lights, no TV glow, nothing. Outside, footsteps rushed toward the door, then suddenly stopped. No pounding, no shouting, just silence. Then the woman's voice came through the door, calm. "You don't want to be in there?" I didn't answer. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness. The room looked almost identical to mine. Same bed, same dresser, same chair in the corner. Except there was someone sitting in that
Looks like
chair.
it was forced open.
A man. I nearly jumped when I noticed him. He hadn't moved, just sitting there quietly in the dark. Finally, he spoke. "You made it." His voice sounded weak, like he hadn't slept in days. "Who are you?" I asked. "I was in room 17 before you," he said. My stomach dropped. Outside the door, someone tested the doorknob once, then stopped. "They won't come in here," the man said. "Why?" I asked. He slowly pointed toward the bathroom. "The reason is in there." I didn't want to look, but I walked to the bathroom anyway. The light didn't work, so I turned on my phone flashlight. The beam slid across cracked tiles, the sink, the mirror, then it reached the bathtub. I froze. The bathtub had been filled with concrete. Not smooth concrete either. Rough, uneven, and sticking out of the surface was a human hand. Just bones, frozen in the gray cement. My chest tightened instantly. I backed away slowly. "The clerk told me it was the original owner," the man said behind me. "Someone killed him years ago and hid the body there." Outside the door, the woman knocked again. Just once. We can wait," she said. The man in the chair laughed quietly. "They always say that." Suddenly, a loud crack came from the bathroom. I turned back toward it. The mirror had split down the middle, a thin crack spreading slowly across the glass. Then something moved in the tub, just a slight shift in the concrete, like pressure underneath it. Outside, the people at the door backed away. I heard their footsteps quickly retreat across the walkway. The woman's voice changed for the first time. Real fear. "Leave," she said to the others. Another dull thump came from the bathtub. The bathroom door creaked open slowly by itself. Cold air spilled into the room. My flashlight trembled in my hand. Then, a wet gray handprint appeared on the carpet outside the bathroom. The footsteps outside ran across the parking lot, and all three of them, running. The woman actually screamed as they disappeared into the darkness. Within seconds, the motel lot was silent again. The man beside me exhaled slowly. They always leave when that starts. I stared at the bathroom. Nothing moved now. The door slowly closed again by itself. Silence returned. After a long minute, the man stood up. "We should go," he said. I agreed immediately. We opened the door carefully. The parking lot was empty. No sign of the woman. No sign of the two men. Even the office light was off now. The old clerk was gone. We didn't waste time. I started my car and the man got in the passenger seat. We drove out of the motel parking lot and back onto the highway without saying a word. And only when the motel lights disappeared in the distance did the tension finally start leaving my body. After a few minutes, I asked him his name. "Daniel," he said. "Aaron," I replied. Neither of us talked much after that. I dropped him at a gas station an hour later. We exchanged numbers just in case. A week passed. Then another. One night, I tried searching for the motel online. Sunset Pines Motel. Nothing came up, no website, no photos, no listing. Just an empty stretch of land near a highway exit. like the motel had never existed. I convinced myself I must have remembered the name wrong. Until one night my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. He had sent a photo. A motel key lying on a table. The brass tag attached to it had one number engraved on it. 17. A second message came right after.